as
you.
many South Africans as we can encourage to get here, the better. That's my feeling.
I cannot agree with you more.
Yes, so fairly similar, I would say. Probably Brisbane's probably more like Durban, I would imagine. Climate-wise, warm water, no wind. Gee, it's nice not having the wind. Love the people in Brisbane. I found them very warm, very welcoming. The climate obviously is sensational, and it's a beautiful city. It's a lovely city, and well, my favorite spot is Noosa. So I went up to Noosa and I had a look around. And I said, nah, we're gonna live here. You know, if you have children and you are keen to give them a future, and Australia is the place to come.
I'm Dr. Chamonix Blanche, ex-corporate and academical turned CEO and board member of several companies and mother of 4 little extraordinary kids. But it wasn't that long ago that I lacked the confidence, the know-how, and the time to focus on designing and really going after the life that I so wanted to live. A life of freedom, of fairness, and of being fair dinkum to who I really was and what I wanted to get out of this fleeting time that we have on Mother Earth. Fast forward to many lessons learned and moving halfway around the world to the most amazing country, you'll see the life that I now live. One that gives me more safety and freedom than I ever thought would be possible, and that really only existed as a daydream while I was living in South Africa. I created Chamonix TV to give you true spot advice on how you can also live a life in this amazing country, and so that you can see how another couple like us now live in Australia with 4 little kids hearing down under. And I'll be providing you with step-by-step strategies so that you can make your Aussie dream a reality too. If you're a keen future Aussie who's looking to create a life that excites you and offers you safety, freedom, and opportunity, you have come to the right place, my friend. Welcome aboard.
Hi, Craig. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from beautiful, beautiful Brisbane. How are you?
I'm good, and thanks so much for having me on. And I think you're doing a fantastic job. I really do. I think
thank you.
As many South Africans as we can encourage to get here, the better. That's my feeling.
I cannot agree with you more, because I find that often the South Africans don't always realize that they're in a mess over there. And then it's only once people like you and I and some other people start shedding the light a little bit and encouraging about what it is that they can get on this side that they sometimes realize. So thank you for your thank you, and thank you for sharing your story with us today. Please tell us, how long have you been in Brisbane for?
We've been here, we arrived in June 2003. And we arrived in Melbourne, but the weather was so bad and so cold. I said to my wife, we're going to go north and find some better weather. So we saw, okay, hold on, there's a place that looks quite nice. Brisbane, that's about the same longitude or latitude as KwaZulu-Natal. That looks good. And we arrived in Brisbane, not knowing a soul. And that was it. My little girls at that stage were 3 and 4.
Wow, okay. And I assume they're now Australian, like there's no more South African left in them.
No, zero. Although they do quite like the idea of being from Africa. I think it gives them kind of, a couple of points talking to their mates,
Yeah, people probably still ask them, do you guys have lions walking around on the airstrip?
Yeah. So I think they quite enjoy that. No, but they're complete Aussies. In fact, when we we still obviously sound like South Africans, but we take them out sometimes and people think we probably hijacked them, because they're complete Aussies. Yeah.
You definitely still have the accent, Craig.
I know.
You and me, we will keep it.
Yeah. Whereabout are you from?
I'm from Secunda, which I don't know if you know where that is. That's in
That's near the game parks. Isn't it near the game parks?
It depends on which game farms you're talking about, but there are a few probably around in that area. So Kruger Park's about 4 hours away from Secunda. Right. Secunda's near Witbank, and Witbank, I don't even know,
Yes.
Witbank and Secunda still have the same names. I'm assuming their names haven't changed yet.
Yeah.
But we're about an hour and a quarter away from Joburg. So I grew up in Trichard, which is a really little town right next to Secunda, and went to school there, and then went to University of Pretoria.
Right. Gotcha.
So I'm a Vali, you know.
Yeah, we were originally from Cape Town, so fairly similar, I would say. Probably Brisbane's probably more like Durban, I would imagine. Climate-wise, warm water, no wind. Gee, it's nice not having the wind.
Well, that's the thing about Perth, because my husband used to live in Cape Town for a couple of years, and he says Perth is exactly like Cape Town minus the wind.
Yeah.
So you were from Cape Town to Melbourne for a short while, and then Brisbane, is that right?
Yeah, we probably spent about 4 days in Melbourne and then up to Brisbane. We knew one person here. Was quite funny. He was an old friend of my brother's who went to school, the same school I went to. And I couldn't remember what he looked like. And he offered to meet us at a shopping center in Indooroopilly, which is west side of a lot of South Africans live out there.
Yeah, it's a lovely area.
It was so funny. The first day we arrived, my wife and I, we ran off, didn't know anybody. This was the guy we were going to meet, and we didn't know what he looked like. And so anyway, yeah, that's it.
And obviously you found him, and he helped you settle in and find your feet in Australia.
Look, I must say, actually, was quite funny is that our first couple of friends we made were Australians who were fantastic, and in fact, we're still really, really good friends with them. So they were our first neighbours, and wonderful people, and they really did help us. So it wasn't. There was a lot of help coming later from South Africans that we met. But we tried really hard not to base everything around the South African network.
Yeah, when in Rome.
That's right, exactly right. I think.
So when you got to, keep going.
You carry on.
No, I just wanted to ask. So when you got to Brisbane, did you feel more at home with the weather?
Oh, look, I the first time I actually came up without Joanne and my girls. And I thought, look, let me come up and have a look and see if there's something warmer in Australia than Melbourne. And I got here and I just absolutely loved it. I stepped off the plane and I just thought, look, this is the place for us. We didn't have jobs or anything like that, and didn't have a lot of money at all. But I just said to Joanne, no, come, you guys come up here. Melbourne's too cold for me. And I just love the people in Brisbane. I found them very warm, very welcoming. The climate obviously is sensational, and it's a beautiful city. It's a lovely city. And well, my favorite spot is Noosa. So I went up to Noosa and I had a look around. And I said, nah, we're gonna live here.
Oh yeah, it's gorgeous there. Yeah. Okay, so how did you make the move from South Africa to here in terms of visas and jobs? Because you mentioned you came without a job. What happened? How did that work?
I actually, the application was under myself, and I applied through the Institute of Australian Architects. And it was we had to go through Canberra, and it was quite complex, but we had lawyers who helped us. They did the application. And it took a long time. It took us about, I'd say a good part of 18 months, maybe 2 years. But it was pretty easy. We got, we got approval and we moved straight away, literally straight away.
So you got approval for the architect's registration, and then that allowed you to apply for PR, is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So we came in with, what was it? It was with PR. And then I think about 3 years after that, 2 years after that, we got citizenship.
So did you have a job in South Africa at that point in time that you resigned from, or
No, I had my own business in South Africa, so I just kind of wrapped it up. And look, we come out about probably 3 years before we arrived as permanent residents to have a look. And I got here, and I just said no. We coming here, so we kind of wrapped things up over that period. So it was a nice transition. I unfortunately landed a couple of really big jobs in Cape Town, some massive jobs, which I had to do remotely from Australia, pretending I was on holiday.
But you did it.
I did it. Yeah, I did it.
Oh, wow.
And I got
Well
paid.
done.
I got paid as well, which was even better.
Oh, great. Well, if you did the job and it, and it works, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you wrapped up your own business. You put your wife and 2 children on the plane and made it to Brisbane in the end. How long did it take you before you got a job, or what did you decide to do when you landed there? How are you going to support yourself?
Look, I'd done a bit of research, so I'd set up job interviews with a number of architecture, urban design. I did a master's in urban design, as did my wife as well, after architecture. And we kind of saw the gap was more in the urban design field. So I'd set up a couple of interviews with firms in Brisbane and literally walked, door to door, and eventually found guys that, great, really a nice firm. And they agreed that I could work for them for 2 weeks for free. So it was,
awesome.
It was the way in, and I did that. I worked for free for 2 weeks. And after that, they could understand that, look, there were skills that I did have, or, whatever. And I then had a really good relationship with that firm for probably, about 6 or 7 years.
So they employed you after the 2 weeks?
Eventually they employed me, and then I went on contract and kind of set up my own business and then contracted back to them. So
that's great. Yeah. Well, if you didn't do that initial 2 weeks,
correct,
it might have taken you much longer to get your foot in the door. And that's the problem with South Africans, because we come without Australian references. We need to get it somewhere.
Exactly. And the advice I often give to people who've just arrived is say, listen, don't be scared to work for somebody for a week or 2, just to show them that, look, you are a good person and you can do the work and all of that. Because I think what a lot of, certainly what myself and my wife felt when we arrived here, was that we South Africans, we're going to show them how to do things. And it's not the right way to go. You need the experience, you need the local know-how, and you need to build up some sort of credibility around your skill base,
And how did you find the work environment in that urban development architecture space compared to what South Africa does? Was it very similar, or a big disconnect, or how did it compare?
I got the shock of my life how hard Australians work and how incredibly efficient they are in my particular field. I'll give you an example. Say a project that would have taken in my office. I had an office which varied between sort of say 7 and 14 people in Cape Town. And a job that I would do on my own when starting in Australia, it would have taken an office of mine of say 14 or 7 people a good couple of months to do. And I would do that here in Australia in 2 or 3 weeks. So the work ethic in Australia is unbelievable, and people work incredibly hard and are very efficient. Very efficient. That's been
because we don't constantly have extra people hanging around that has got nothing else to do almost than helping you. Like, it doesn't sound there's no cheap labor. In Australia, we don't have cheap labor, so you need to be efficient. You learn to do the things. You clean your house, you wash your washing, you don't have other people doing things for you. But as you say, Craig, is that you learn to do things differently, and so in the same time you can do a lot more.
Okay, sorry, just to a funny story. We had a cleaner who used to come in twice a week. That was about 8 years ago, and a lovely story is that I eventually got chatting to her and I found out that she owned 2 properties. She was probably worth about $2.5 million, and there she was, the cleaner. You know what I mean?
Exactly. In this country, you cannot say if you're living in a suburb that's expensive that you won't be living next to a cleaner, because it doesn't matter. The cleaner often has a great property portfolio.
And that's what I love about Australia. I mean, we live in the street now. We've got doctors and we've got highfalutin IT experts who run their own huge businesses. We've got migrants from Hong Kong and we've got migrants from Africa. and social housing and mechanics and engineer, electrical, what do you call it, electricians. It's a very mixed strata. You don't have the same snobbery, I know, that we certainly had in South Africa, and everyone at night walks their dogs and gets on, and you don't have that level of kind of a separation that one had in Cape Town as a society,
Yeah, all of South Africa. Even in the regional areas I grew up and in the city that I was in when I was at university. So here it doesn't matter what you do, it matters who you are, what kind of person you are.
Exactly.
So Craig, tell me a little bit about your children, your daughters. How did they settle in those initial years when they came in? They were 3 and 4 years old, you said.
Yeah, well, I'm wrong. They were 4 and 5.
Okay, close enough.
4 and 5, yes. And well, the eldest one basically went straight to school. Danielle, a great school, Imbrapilli State School, which is a public school. And she arrived, and I remember we dropped her the first day, and it was just so sad. She had no friends. Her whole background was gone. And there we were. Okay, sweetie, have a lovely day. And this poor little thing, the tears welled up in her eyes. But she became great friends with the Zimbabwean girl. So her best friend was a black Zimbabwean girl who was lovely, and a little girl from, I think, China, and a little girl from Indonesia. So, but look, it took her literally, 2 weeks, and she was, happy as Larry. The youngest one went into pre-primary, I think it's called, and she was fine, but having said that, I think that the initial year, certainly the initial year of arriving in a new country, is really tough. I mean, you can't underestimate how tough it is. It's not for sissies.
Absolutely.
And I think Joanne, she literally cried like the first 3 months that we were here every night, about saying, what have we done, etc. I was just too busy to cry, but I probably would have, yeah, that's right, but it's a very tough shift, but we were fortunate. Our girls came in young, and it was very easy for them to relate, very, very easy.
And how do you feel about Australia now, a few years in? And Joanne, how does she feel about it? Have you made it your home yet? And what's the best thing for you about living in Australia?
I absolutely love Queensland. I love Australia. Look, pre-COVID, I spent a lot of time down in Melbourne as well. And it's an absolutely, it's a fantastic country. It's a remarkably amazing country, in every respect. I feel that way. Joanne feels that way, and my girls absolutely. I mean, they loved. I mean, for specifically young girls living in Australia, where you still have the safety. They can go out with their mates at night and catch an Uber and walk around the city. They have that safety and security, and they have opportunities. That's the thing I try and tell people, friends of mine back in South Africa, or Facebook connections, whatever, is that the kids here have huge opportunities. It's tougher for the older folk, but for the kids, if they get into school or uni here, whatever, they build up a network, which is the problem that, older folk, don't have that network necessarily, or it's tough to build. But the kids, their opportunities. My youngster, she has her own business, and is involved with marketing and business and video productions and all of that. As with my oldest one, who's also involved in business and marketing. Danielle is involved across many, and their earnings are terrific. They earn brilliantly. They have like unbelievable lifestyles, like incredible lifestyles.
Yeah, they probably would have struggled to do the same kind of thing in South Africa, because there's just so much supporting networks in Australia, and there's also like a safety net here, that if you fall, something is going to catch you,
Correct.
like either Centrelink or some kind of
Correct.
assistance that they have in place.
But when I see the youngsters operating here, and I say my girls are 22, 23, turning a year on after that, is that the opportunities, the growth that they experience in terms of their business capacity is unreal. It's absolutely phenomenal. And that's both of them, and that's their friends as well. The world's their oyster. It really is. It's dynamic, and it's if they need a job, they'll get a job. If they need a client, it's profound. It's absolutely profound.
That's wonderful. That's really great to hear. So we know about the good things. What, except for friends and family, what do you miss the most about South Africa?
Look, obviously, friends and family. That's a given. One really misses that. I think I'm very into politics. I've always enjoyed politics, and if anything, Australia would be slightly boring, on the political front.
Yes. Except if you get really close to the center, like you and I clearly now have, you start learning a lot about the politics, and it becomes very interesting.
But it doesn't have the same dynamic as South Africa does politically. I remember those years of Mandela, and I started a business, and I was very involved with the ANC and the Communist Party, the Cape Communist Party, and all of that. It was absolutely electric. Really electric. But I'm willing to forego that level of excitement.
For the quiet, relaxed kind of Australian lifestyle.
I prefer Noosa.
I don't blame you. South African politics is a very different thing to the Australian politics. You and I on the different sides of the spectrum. I was never involved in South African politics. And then when I came to Australia, I became involved in the Australian politics, and you're the opposite way. So between the two of us, we can make one generation out of politics across two countries. Craig, tell me, with South Africans watching our episode today, thinking, don't know, is Australia the place for me to go? Should I try? What would you say to them?
I would say, please try. Please. The problem is this, and I'm very involved with Facebook, and I try and help people out. And that is, today I was on Facebook and I saw South Africans posting about it's not greener on the other side. South Africa is wonderful. It's going to come right. All that. The reality is, it's not. It's not. If you have children and you are keen to give them a future, and Australia is the place to come. There is no doubt. Look, I'm sure America and Canada have heard great reports, but I can't speak on. I've been there, but I can't speak on on those countries' behalf. Australia, if you have kids, please do yourselves a favor and get over here as soon as you can. And of interest is, you don't have to be a professional. Australia is looking for tradies. They're looking for a whole bunch of skill sets. We're having to import, you would know, we're importing people from the islands at the moment to work on farms and all that sort of stuff. So get a good lawyer, get a good agent, and there are opportunities, But if you've got kids, the opportunity here for children is incredible. Absolutely. And the other thing is this, that people might not know in South Africa, is that if you want to send your kids to uni, you can use the HEX system, which is effectively free money. Your kids pay it back. If you can't afford it, your kids will pay back the HEX debt as part of their earnings over the next 20 years. And it's minimal. It's minimal,
And they only start paying back once they reach a certain income
threshold
level. That's right.
It's exactly,
and it's not based, it's not income based, it's any Australian can go and can get the loan, which is such a fair and equal.
If you come over here, our kids went to public schools for primary school, Inverpilly State School. It was excellent. The education was fantastic. They went to private schools for high school, but they didn't have to. They honestly didn't have to. And, they could have stayed in public schools. We just were in a position to be able to give them that. And the private schooling here is excellent. The public schooling here is excellent as well. And healthcare is incredible in Australia. It is absolutely remarkable. If you've got an issue, you can go into a public hospital and get treated and sorted. You've got the best care in the world, and it's free. So housing is very expensive in Australia. That's the downside. But we rented for the first year that we were in Australia, and there's nothing wrong with that either. And you earn dollars, so very quickly you can afford to save up and to get into a position to be able to purchase something.
Well, the other thing is the Australian government, if you're a resident here, obviously also helps you with a first homeowners grant.
That's right.
Most of the time. Exactly. And that's a massive difference. It keeps on changing. I'm not sure exactly what it's at the moment, but it used to be $14,000 when I came over that they just give to you. They go here you go, Priscilla, we just want you to be able to buy a house.
Exactly. But the difference in affordability is the figures sound high for housing. I think the average house price in Brisbane at the moment is 720,000, I think, in that region. But I look at my two young girls now. The eldest has moved out. She's renting a fancy apartment in the city. But both of them now, over the next 2 years, will be purchasing a house. Now, that's 23, 24, maybe 24, 25 by the time they do it. There are very few countries that you can earn enough as a youngster to be in a position now to being able to contemplate purchasing houses. They have saved a fortune. When people say, but it's so expensive, it's not. I've been back to South Africa. My mom died recently, 2 years ago, but I used to go back every year, mostly to go and say hi to her, and my brother is still over there and his family. And I couldn't believe how expensive South Africa had become. It's literally to go shopping or to do anything with the exception of maybe breakfast. It's comparable to Australia. And the only difference is we probably earn 10 times more than they do. That's the reality, So it's when we left 20 years ago, Australia comparatively to South Africa was very expensive. It's on a par now if you convert to dollars. And
the other thing that people need to also keep in mind is the fact that if you are in Australia earning dollars, your dollar value doesn't fall as much as the rand value keeps on falling.
Well, that's right.
So if you want to still go overseas or buy some stuff on the internet, because these days, we all buy stuff overseas through the internet, your dollar goes so much further in terms of what you want to purchase.
My girls who are, as I said, 23, 22, 23, both of them have already been to Europe. They've been to America. They've been to Fiji. They've been to Bali a number of times. These are youngsters who have the funds to afford to be able to go on those trips, plus to purchase a house. So, if you've got a youngster living in South Africa, a kid, tough for yourself, yes, sympathize, but do your kids a favor and get the hell out, and get to Australia as quickly as you can.
And tell us a little bit about what's happening behind you there. I know you're an architect, so tell us what are all those developments that you're working on?
I do a lot of, at the moment, I'm currently doing a lot of big residential developments in Melbourne. The growth is absolutely huge.
In Melbourne?
In Melbourne, huge growth. And it's not Chinese growth, it's Indian. So the majority of the purchases coming into Australia at the moment are Indian purchases.
Very interesting,
But when I tell you huge growth, huge, enormous. I do residential developments, probably doing the design, only the design, obviously not construction. Design, I probably do about 1,000 lots a week on average in Melbourne.
So Brisbane, building new houses, is that what it means?
Yeah, building new houses.
Wow.
New housing estates. In Brisbane, much less. I probably average a month about 200 houses a month in Brisbane.
Wow.
But so the scale of development and investment is absolutely huge.
And that is in the middle of COVID, shall we add?
That's in the middle of COVID. That's quite correct. Yep.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
It's phenomenal. Having my own business in Cape Town, I think we would probably have done, in a similar line on the urban design front, we would probably have done about maybe 600 or 1,000 lots a year maximum.
Wow.
Now you're talking about I'm doing 1,000 a week. So
wow.
You know what I mean? It's just.
Do you get time to sleep, Craig?
No. So it's the growth is just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Well,
and the good news is, for those, I'm just trying to punt for Brisbane, is it looks really, really good now that we've got the Olympics, for 2032. So that's going to push development in Southeast Queensland hugely,
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we used to live in Brisbane for 2 years, and this was about, I think we came back to Perth 2009. Yeah. And we've been to Brisbane a couple of times in between, but when we passed through Brisbane now in November last year, we could not believe how much development in the CBD alone there was in Brisbane. All these towers just coming up, the high rises, and it's just beautiful, that whole waterfront development, and South Brisbane, that it's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous place. But it just keeps growing massively.
It's incredible, the growth. And one of my favorite cities in the world is Singapore, hugely advanced. I don't know if you've been there, but and Brisbane has done really well as well, because the amount of investment in infrastructure under the ground, like underground rail, underground roads, bridges, is incredible. I mean, for a city, we're a small city. We probably, including the Gold Coast, probably 2.5 million people. The length of tunnels in Brisbane, I've never seen anything like in my life. You can drive around the whole day underground, so we basically set for the future growth, you know.
That's good. That's the way we want to keep it. Keep your eye on the future and, plan ahead. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Craig. It's lovely to hear how good you're doing and how Australia has become your home, and, that a family like yourself who came with no job in hand, what is it now, 18 years ago, I think?
18, yep.
Give or take. You came with essentially nothing, as you said, you didn't have much money, but you have made Australia your home, and you've managed to provide such a safe and exciting future for your daughters. So well done on both yourself and Joanne for taking the leap.
Thank you very much. And just to add, I support the Wallabies.
I was going to ask. You and me, I know this will get, I actually do support the Wallabies as well. I'm one of a few, most in my family. I have a lot of family members here, or all my immediate family is here, and they're all like, my dad is still Springboks. My brother's like, well, I'm now a Wallaby. My mum and I, we chat for the Wallabies.
Good on you.
But also South Africa, if they're playing against another team, of course I'll support South Africa. All right, Craig, enjoy your beautiful Brisbane house and place and life, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up with you soon enough, and maybe with your daughters as well too.
Oh, that would be great. I'd love you to have a chat to them, and just to show youngsters in South Africa what's possible, and that it is greener on the other side.
Good on you. Keep fighting the good fight, Craig.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. You too. Goodbye.
Yeah. Bye.
All right. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you had fun, please remember to hit that subscribe button, and then it'll make sure that you never miss a thing. I'll see you same time and same place next week. Bye for now.